All right, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Toon podcast. We are the Southern Hemisphere's biggest, best, and only podcast dedicated to all things Newcastle United. Joining me today to go through the Everton preview and to talk about the FA Cup draw that was made a few days ago against those the other side of the water, I've got Dimi. How are you doing, mate?
Very well, Craigie. It seems like there's a blockbuster or there's a big game or big cup draw that we have every 3 or 4 days. So it's good that football's coming around every couple of days, but we're hoping we get a few players back because these games are coming thick and fast. But that cup draw is definitely something to talk about.
It definitely is. Before we do jump into this, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel. We are so close to 1,500 subscribers on YouTube. And if you do listen to us on the audio platforms, please give us a 5-star review and any comments, and we will try and respond to everybody as quickly as we possibly can. We're going to dive straight into this. And so, Dimi, a few days ago, around about midnight it was for myself, so that's 1 o'clock for you. The FA Cup third round draw was made. I missed the first opening few draws. I think now we've already been drawn, and I've missed who we've been drawn against effectively. And names kept on coming out. Then I seen the Arsenal-Liverpool draw. I thought that's quite a tasty one. I wonder who we've already got. And then Ball 38 came out, and Sunderland at home. I think, who these losers got. And then out came out Ball number 27, Newcastle United. I was like, fucking get in. We've got them back. And genuinely, I've never been so excited for a cup draw in God knows how long. It's been 8 years since we've played those lot, and I love the derbies, but I also hate them for the same reason as well, because I've not been kind to for the last few meetings or so. What was your first initial reaction to drawing Sunderland away in the cup?
Yeah, so I thought it was a joke, to be honest, because I was fast asleep by the time the draw happened, and I woke up in the middle of the night just to get a glass of water, and I just checked my phone to see if there's any breaking news, another injury, or God knows what's going on at Newcastle. And then I see the notification pop up saying that Newcastle have drawn Sunderland in the FA Cup. I'm like, that can't be right. I said, usually Sunderland are knocked out by it before the third round, so we can never play them, first of all. And then I've gone on to Twitter or X or whatever it's called, and it's confirmed. And yeah, you're right. The initial feeling is, how good's this? This is sensational. The little thought in the back of my mind is like, shit, we haven't beaten these blokes for a long time, and especially before we got relegated last, and obviously they've gone down a couple of divisions and sort of made their way back to the championship, but we haven't had a good record against them, especially at home. I was probably a little bit happier the games at their ground, only because obviously the pressure is going to be on us being the Premier League team, but I just feel a little bit more comfortable playing against them at their ground, and especially to do them at their ground would be fantastic. And there's going to be thousands of Newcastle fans trying to get a ticket for that game. But yeah, it's great that we've got them in the cup, and it's just one of those cup draws. I mean, every single cup game we've played this season, every draw, it's been I don't think you can even predicted or scripted the ties we've got and the difficulty in some respects, but I think it's every Newcastle fan's dream to draw them, and I reckon if we can do them at their ground, it'd be
Well, there's talk we're getting a capacity around about 7,300 tickets to go down their place, which is around about 15% of the overall capacity. It's going to be on weekend of the 6th or the 7th of January. Chances are it will be an early kickoff. That's what the police will want at least as well. There's no way they'll want this to be an evening kickoff, because we all know what that'll cause. No way that's going to be a late afternoon or evening kickoff. No chance that's happening. But it should be a game that maybe a lot of fans haven't even seen or even remember, to be honest, for those of a certain age. I think 8 years ago was the last time we played them. Unfortunately, we did lose, and we went down to the championship. They stayed up, but the following year is Dwight Gale done, we're going up, they're going down. and roles reversed, and look where we are now compared to where they've been. It's been an absolute roller coaster for both, and I would just like to, hopefully, I have my demolition derby scarf right here from when we smashed them 5-1 at that Halloween show down at St James's Park. It would be pretty canny to do that down in their place, wouldn't it, mate?
Absolutely, and I think we do owe them a few, to be honest. The recent results against them have been quite poor, and I think we may have snuck a draw under Rafa from memory. I think Mitro might have scored a late goal
He did
when there
that.
was that streaker who came on and slide tackled Mitro. That was quite funny, but I think we owe them a couple. They've beaten us at home quite badly a few times, so I think we are due to pants them at their ground. And obviously, we all remember Shearer's last goal when he scored the 4-1, and Luque scored as well. And I think another demolition job, well, would go down very nicely. But there's obviously a long time between now and then. Hopefully, we won't get any more
Yes.
injuries, and we can field a strong team. I think any thoughts of Eddie Howe resting players as he did last year against Sheffield Wednesday? I think that's gone right out the window. I don't think we're going to be playing anything other than a full strength team. Doesn't matter if some of them are tired or half fit. I think everyone's going to want to play this one, and the likes of Bruno and Joe Linton, I think we're going to need to hold them back from this game because they're liable to lose their heads at the best of times, and this is the sort of game that we could see some tackles flying in very, very early.
Yes, I mean, chances are, I even mentioned a few days ago that I expect Joe Lynn to do a Toyota and get sent off or something like that. But, it's going to be a game which hopefully the ref allows to flow in the way a derby should flow. And not on about a
Yeah.
shitty Manchester derby or anything like that, where it's just a few passes and the odd barge over. I do genuinely think, and this is probably maybe a bit biased here, the time we had derby is up there with one of the feistiest, one of the best, most aggressive and competitive derbies out there. But I so hope it swings in our favour this year because there is absolutely no way we'd be able to cope if they done us over again, especially when it can say, well, all you've got to use is Saudi money and we still managed to beat you and everything. I don't mind the Saudi money jokes or anything like that. That's all part and parcel of the takeover. But last thing I do not want is to suffer another defeat to the hands of the unwashed. It would just be unbearable, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I think there's been a fair few years since our last victory against them. I think it's over 10 years since we've last beaten them. So we are definitely well overdue. And I mean, in some respects, you'd like to get more shots at them, but I wouldn't be upset at them staying in the championship forever and we never play them again unless it's a cup draw. So we may not get another chance to play them for a fair few years yet. So we have to relish this opportunity, and I'm sure. I mean, we know how good the leadership is in our squad. Everyone's going to be up for the game, and the fans will be up for it. Eddie Howe knows what this game is going to mean to the supporters, and you're right. It's the tackles will be flying in, and it's not one of those derbies where it's sort of a bit passive. It ends 0-0, or it's just some good football being played. There are tackles flying in everywhere, and there's going to need to be a strong referee to keep control of the game because very easily when you play, all due respect, well, we'll throw it out the window. No respect to Sunderland. They're not as good a football team as us. They're going to try and muck the game up. They're going to probably try and frustrate us with challenges and getting in our faces, seeing if they can roll us up. That's probably going to be their MO, especially early. So we need to make sure the referee's there to try and clamp that down, and we don't fall for it. Otherwise, yeah, it could get. I mean, when you got Bruno and Joe Linton in that middle of the park, you're right. It could be Toyota-esque, and some challenges could be flying in very early.
Yeah, they've already made a managerial change in fear of us coming over there and wiping them off the map effectively. So they're already running scared. But it should be a cracking game. We're not going to dive too much into this. There's obviously excitement around the game. The buzz is massive on social media. I genuinely can't look forward any more to this game than any other game this season, to be honest, so far. It is going to be absolutely mental. Hopefully there's TV coverage here in Australia. If not, it's a case of a VPN and getting it from wherever. Fingers crossed that is the case, because I will not want to be missing this one. And I know it'll be the same for yourself, Dimi. But yeah,
Absolutely.
Should be an absolute cracking game. Hopefully we can get the win and we can experience the fourth round for the first time in God knows how long. It's something that has eluded us for the past few years, but getting one over those skanky neighbours of ours and getting to the fourth round is always going to be nice feeling, won't it, mate?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously we all love a big cup run, but even if we get knocked out in the next round and we pants the Mackems, I think most people will take that and sort of not accept the fourth round exit, but if we can do over Sunderland at their ground, I think that'll be very, very sweet. And like you said, hopefully we don't see them for a very long time and they can just sit and rot in the lower divisions. But this might be our chance to really put not a nail in their coffin because it's not going to mean anything for promotion for them, but really lay a marker that we are way, way, way past their level now. And it used to be not even footy, but they used to probably see themselves as somewhat equals as us because we're both relegation rivals for a while. So I think we can really stamp our authority in this game and just completely annihilate them, hopefully.
Yep, hopefully that's the case. But we'll leave that there and we will do a full preview of that game in due time as it draws closer. But now we're going to move on to the Everton game, which is this Friday morning for us. So it's a 5:30 a.m. kickoff for myself, 6:30 a.m. for yourself, Dimi, down in Melbourne. And back in the UK, it's a 7:30 p.m. kickoff on the Thursday night. So the game at Goodison Park is always an exciting, ferocious game because the crowd are always up for it, Goodison. There are quite a rowdy bunch, as we know. But the way the two clubs have separated, have gone on their different paths with takeovers and everything like that, we are obviously light years ahead of them and where we are in terms of a club and where we are in terms of on-field antics as well, effectively. But this game, it's always been a bit of a strange one, in my opinion, because you can never really tell what you're going to get from the team at Goodison this season, especially with Sean Dyche in charge. He's got his own unique brand of football, which isn't very pretty on easy on the eye, but he does tend to get results effectively. Last season, we ran away 4-1 winners in that game quite comfortably. We should have had a clean sheet, but they got a free goal from a corner. Are you seeing the game going down a similar path as last season, or do you think it'll be a lot more of a closed affair?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think they're as fragile as they were last season. Obviously, Dyche took over later in the season, so there was only so much he could do. He did well to keep them up in the end because they looked gone and shot in terms of being relegated. So he did well to keep them up last year, and I think there definitely was that air of atmosphere in the ground. Obviously, they're up for it always, Everton, but if you get a goal ahead or 2 goals ahead, they can turn on their own players pretty quickly. Similar to to be honest, what used to happen at St James's Park under previous managers, there was that air. If the away team got an early goal or two, the fans could turn. So I think they're a little bit more united off the pitch, especially with their recent points deduction and how they feel they've been wronged. So I don't think they're going to be turning on their play. So it will be a tougher game for us. And just with our squad depth, we don't have the luxury to bring on a Callum Wilson off the bench or like it was last season. Isaac came off the bench and did that amazing run where we scored that goal. So it's not going to be one of those games. It's going to be a grind out game, and our away form hasn't been great. So yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a much tougher test than it was last year.
Well, speaking of away form, to give you an idea, we have picked up 5 points from a possible 18 and haven't won away since that 8-0 demolition of Sheffield United at the back end of September. However, Everton's form is even worse. So basically, they've won 4 points from a possible 21 at home. They've won 1, drawn 1, and I think that only victory came against Bournemouth and the draw against Brighton. So their home form is worse than ours away. So it looks like it could be a fairly even game just based on form in that regard. But in terms of quality on the pitch, you'd think with the likes of Bruno, Joe Linton, they've been playing like men on fire over the last few games as well. It's ever since they dyed their hair back to platinum blonde, it just seems to hit the switch and they just both go into beast mode. And hopefully that can continue this weekend. Support Lewis Miley, who's had an amazing impact on the team since he's came in for a 17-year-old. Lascelles and Shaw, they've been playing like men possessed lately as well. Shaw with those surgeon runs from the back going forward. And your best friend, Jamal Lascelles, what have you thought of his resurgence in the squad since Botman's injury?
It's been amazing, hasn't it? I mean, look, I'm obviously been openly said on this podcast, I haven't been his biggest fan. I thought we'd probably gone past him as a footballer, and he had probably not the right style that Eddie wanted from a centre half. But I mean, this season he's shown that he's improved, I think, 2 or 3-fold with his passing out of defence. But it's not just that he's shown his quality for me. It's been his one-on-one defending. I think his pace has really been important for us against. I think against Mbappe twice he's been sensational. Mbappe hasn't really got a sniff compared to what he usually would, being one of the best strikers in the world. So I think Lascelles has been a massive help for us, because when Botman went down initially, we all thought probably not that it's the end of us, but there's a massive drop off between Botman and Lascelles. But it's turned out that Lascelles has kept probably a similar level than what Sven had been doing at his very best, and that's credit to Lascelles, and it's probably credit to Eddie Howe as well. He's probably coached him to a point and fine-tuned his game to a point where now Lascelles is going on the pitch confident. There was that time where, I think for a couple of years, that he just looked unsure at the back. And when you got a centre-back who's unsure, who's liable to make an error and do a dodgy pass or, out of position or do a rush tackle, it really sets you up for failure. So he's sort of got that out of his game to an extent, or mostly. I mean, Chelsea, he had a couple of moments on the ball, but he really has been a great leader for us at the back. And I can't really criticize him much anymore. He has been sensational, and he's really helped us out since Big Sven's been out.
Absolutely. Let's talk the two centre backs in Shaw and Lascelles. But what did you make of our two full backs in the Man United game? They were absolutely sensational, weren't they? You'd imagine with those two, if they were anywhere near that level of form at Goodison, the game not necessarily be cut and dry, but it should make it a lot easier and a lot more attacking aspect in our favour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know Trippier's overlapping ability and how good he is on the ball and how involved he is in the attacks. And he's been doing that ever since he's been at us. But the introduction of Tino on the left, I mean, every game I watch this kid, I just marvel how good he is. I mean, I don't think I've seen him lose many one-on-ones in his time so far starting for us. He's playing on the wrong side for him. He's not a left-sided player. He's a right-sided player. But not just his defensive work, his attacking work, and he does something a little bit different to Trippier. He actually carries the ball and he dribbles. And he did that wonderful run in Paris, I think it was, where he dribbled and he set up Miggy's shot for Isaac's tap in. He's got that ability to carry the ball forward, but he's got the engine to come back. And obviously, Dan Burn's been sensational for us, and we're not going to criticize him. He's a wonderful Geordie. He's also playing out of position and been fantastic for us. But I think Tino's taken us to another level in terms of us on the ball and carrying the ball forward. And you're right, with the likelihood that Dyche is probably going to play that old-fashioned low block and try and limit our space, out wide is going to be where we can try to exploit them. And if we've got both Tino and Trips bombing on down the wing, it's going to really aid us to get enough service to score goals.
The other good side of Tino is the player that he's got in front of him, Anthony Gordon. And he so far is our player of the season. And this game will have obviously more of emotion for him than anybody else. Yes, he did play a bit part role in the game last season, the 4-1 win. But he came in, I think we were already at least 3-1 or 4-1 up by the time he made an appearance.
I think it was 4-1. I think it was already 4-1. It was for the last 5-10 minutes from memory.
Yeah, and Goodison was as good as empty by the time he made his appearance, which was a very smart move by Eddie to bring him on as the crowd were already on the way home. The result was pretty much sealed. Yes, there was a few boos and a few jeers, that type of thing, but it's pretty much a given he's going to be part of this starting lineup now. He's going to be a very impactful player, and it's looking as though he's going to be up against 304-year-old Ashley Young, who, unless he's got new batteries in his mobility scooter, he's going to struggle to keep up with Gordon for a full 90 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've circled Ashley Young a few times when we've played against him. I think when he's played at Villa recently and even at Manchester United, he just doesn't have the pace anymore, and that's fair enough. He is right. You're right. He's almost in his mobility scooter. He's at the tail end of his career, or probably over the edge, to be honest. So that matchup for us is a good one, and I think the big thing for Gordon is going to be his mental state and just making sure that he doesn't get overawed by the occasion and he doesn't let the Everton players wind him up, because that's 100% what they're going to try and do. They're probably going to leave a few challenges into him, and they're probably going to try and see if he can get off his game or get put off his game. And we can't afford to either get him sent off or for him to be completely off his game, because we just don't have the cattle on the bench to replace him if that happens. So it's going to need some maturity from him, and I trust Eddie's going to get him in the right frame of mind. And when you've got the big bodyguard Joe Linton in the middle of the park, I think most players will walk a bit taller. So if there's any challenges on that left-hand side of the pitch going against Gordon, I think Joe Linton's going to be not too far away from that. So hopefully Big Joe can protect Gordon, and Everton can stick to playing football and not try and break his legs.
One absentee that will be from the starting lineup is Nick Pope, who seemed to pop his shoulder in the Man United game late on. I think it was in the last 10, 15 minutes or so. At first, I thought it was his knee that he injured, because he was holding his knee, but he's obviously his arm had very little movement, so it just literally where it naturally fell. Eddie has confirmed not so long ago, just before we came on to do this recording, that he will require surgery. And although it's not confirmed the amount of time that he'll miss from the game, reports are suggesting 4 to 5 months. Yep. And with him being a keeper, shoulder surgery, shoulder rehabilitation, that type of thing, probably a little bit more important than it will be for an outfield player for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Dubravka coming in at number 2. Still have got the number 1 shirt. Are you more than happy with Dubravka coming in for a long period of time?
I am. I'm probably one of the few who still believes in Dubravka. I think people forget that time where he was our number 1 when Rafa took over. He was sensational for us, and at that point in time, we probably had Callum Wilson who was scoring goals when he was fit, and we had Dubravka at the back, and we didn't have much else. It was literally Dubravka saving us every second week from getting hammered, and he was a key part of that. So I trust in Dubravka's ability. He's obviously an experienced goalkeeper. He's played in the Premier League for 4 or 5 years. So he's got, it's not like we're sending in an 18, 19-year-old untried goalkeeper. I've got plenty of confidence that he can do the job. He's played plenty of football for Slovakia. His country's going to the Euros in mid-year, so he's going to want some game time. He's going to want to be sharp, and he's going to want to impress. So I think all that bodes well for us, that we're going to get the best of Dubravka, and we're probably in a fortunate position that we've probably got 3 goalkeepers who arguably could be starting in the Premier League. Definitely 2. And I mean, Karius is probably better than some of the bottom 3 or 4 teams' goalkeepers, I would argue. So
yeah,
we're in the fortunate position that Dubravka is our number 2. I mean, if we wind back at the start of last season, Karius wasn't there. Dubravka was at Man United, and we had Mark Gillespie as our number 2. I think all due respect to him, but I wouldn't want to be seeing him in our goals and playing these massive Champions League games and massive games in the Premier League and the Cup. So I think Dubravka is going to do quite a good job, and obviously he may not have the same shot saving ability as Pope does, and he may not be able to command his box just being not as big as Pope, but he'll definitely be, for me, at least a 7 or 7.5 out of 10. And as long as he doesn't do a major errors and goal keep like old mate from Manchester United, Onana, as long as he just does his job and keeps it simple, I think we're all going to be happy.
Would you be tempted to look in the January transfer window for a keeper, even if it was a short-term loan or a free transfer? Because there's been a lot of talk of David De Gea. Is he somebody that you think could come to the club, do a job for a short term, or do you think he'd want more long-term satisfaction, the fact that he's going to want a contract to see over how many 2-3 years, and then that's just going to push maybe Karius and or Gillespie out of the club, or even Dubravka for that matter?
Yeah, I wouldn't be entertaining the De Gea signing, to be honest. He's been a free agent for nearly 6 months, and not one club in Europe has signed him. So there's got to be a reason for that. I think a lot of clubs can't just be missing the fact that he's still a good goalkeeper. He obviously had his issues at the end of his time at Manchester United. At his peak, he was a world-class goalkeeper, and no one can deny that. But he's always been, for me, very suspect in the Premier League, especially for set pieces and crosses. And I probably wouldn't feel comfortable with him being in our squad, and I don't think he'd have the character to come in and sort of fight for a position on the bench, let alone a number one. So I wouldn't be entertaining that at all. If at all, we would sign a goalkeeper who we see is potentially the successor for Pope, maybe a younger goalkeeper or someone who we were looking at potentially in the summer. Maybe we can sign him now, maybe, but unless that happens, and I mean, we wouldn't be spending, you'd think, big money on a goalkeeper in January. There's other priorities for us. So
Yeah.
I'm well and truly happy to roll with Dubravka and Karius. And I mean, God forbid one of those or both of those go down, and then we have to go to Gillespie. We'll cross that bridge then. But I think for now, Dubravka and Karius can get us through to the rest till at least either when Pope's back or to the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, keep it going on. Unless, like I said, Dubravka is an absolute howler between now and January. Keep him going.
Yeah.
He's proved to be more than capable of a cracking shot stopper. Everyone remembers his debut against Man United, where Matty Longstaff got the winner. He played an absolute worldie that game, and if he can rediscover half of that form, we've got a cracking backup keeper, not a problem whatsoever. Now, getting on to the Everton team, one player who is potentially doubtful, and he's actually had a good record against us, and he's always injured, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. What do you make of DCL in terms of his ability on and off the ball? And do you think he's potentially a player that hasn't lived up to his potential because of his injuries? And I'd imagine you'd be glad he sits this game out because of his record against us.
Yeah, he does seem to score all the time against us. You're right, and he's a dangerous striker. He's that old school number 9, and he's very good in the air. He holds the ball up, but he's also got a bit of pacing behind. And I do remember him scoring goals through 1-on-1 against us and finishing coolly. So he is a very good striker when fit. But I mean, if we think Callum Wilson's fit has a bad injury record, I mean, Calvert-Lewin in the last couple of seasons has barely played himself, so he just can't seem to get his body right. And hopefully for our sake, he does miss this game. But if he were to play, he definitely would be a threat, because obviously Lascelles is decent in the air, but Shea is not the biggest guy, and he is very good in the air. And I'm sure Everton is going to be wanting to lump as many balls into the box if he is playing. So definitely one to watch if he plays. But you're right, with his record against us, we'll be quite happy to see him in the stands.
The other striker option they've got is Beto. Now, I haven't seen a huge amount of him in terms of, say, full 90 minutes. I've seen maybe extended highlights. He does like to get himself about the pitch. He's very strong, very physical, almost Joe Linton-esque in terms of player ability. But he seems to have the finishing touch of Joe Linton as well, to be honest. He's not a natural finisher by any stretch. But if he throws his weight around, and like I mentioned before, Shaw's not the most physically demanding defender, but he's a very smart defender.
Yeah.
Between Beto and DCL, who would you prefer Everton to start on Friday morning for us?
Yeah, Beto for sure, because he just hasn't proven it in the Premier League. I mean, Calvert-Lewin, when fit, has proven he can score goals in the Premier League, and is a proven goal scorer at this level. So definitely Beto would be the preferred option from our perspective. And it's not just Beto. It seems like there's a lot of 6'1", 6'2" blokes in that Everton team. Then it does really feel like a Sean Dyche team. They're physical. They're probably not going to play a lot of tiki-taka football. It's going to be a lot of second balls and try to get the balls into the box as quickly as they can. And look, we're going to need to deal with a lot of aerial play. So Calvert-Lewin for me is a lot better in the air, and he's a lot more dangerous in terms of a goal threat. So yeah, for me, I'd much rather see him in the stands.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Now, before we get to the potential lineups for this game, just want to put this scenario into your head. It's the 93rd minute, the final whistle. There's 2 minutes left on the clock. It's 1-1. Anthony Gordon is running down Jordan Pickford. He's got an open goal in front of him. He puts it between the keeper's legs at the Gladys Street end, makes the game 2-1. Now, you're in Anthony Gordon's position. Do you A, have muted celebration and let your teammates celebrate for you, or do you go full on Emmanuel Adebayor and sprint the length of that pitch? Which you want option B?
If it was me, I'd be 100% doing that Adebayor. I'd be taking the shirt off, number one, wheeling it around my head, and going straight to the Everton fans and giving it large. Definitely doing the Adebayor. Look, I'm not sure if Gordon would do that. I seem to think that, especially since he's been at Newcastle, his head has been screwed on a lot better than it did seem when he was down at Everton. So if he did score a goal, and hopefully he does score a last minute winner, because that would just be hilarious. I don't think he'd do the Adebayor and do the full celebration. He'd probably try to mute it down, but it would be interesting. I mean, Everton, their fans are very close to the pitch at that ground at Goodison Park. So
Yeah.
if he did try to do an Adebayor, I would not put it past a pitch invasion and some sort of revolt against him. So look, we don't want to see Gordon get attacked or anything like that. So
No.
hopefully it doesn't resort to that. If it's a last minute winner and he doesn't celebrate, or he just goes in front of the Newcastle fans, we'll take that. We just want the 3 points, and if he scores, all the better.
Absolutely. So we'll jump into the lineups now. Now, we haven't been the home team. We'll get those first. So in goal, we've got Jordan T-Rex Pickford, and he's ever present in the Everton goal, and the England number one keeper as well. Somehow manages to keep Pope out, which I've not a clue how. It's a bit baffling. But then across the back, starting from the left, they've got Mikalenko, Branthwaite, Tarkowski, who was apparently a one-time Newcastle target, is the takeover first started. Then, as we mentioned earlier on, we've got the agent Ashley Young. And in midfield, they've got McNeil, Guy, Garner, and Harrison. Then up in the middle, again, a little bit further forward, Decore and Beto up top, playing a 4-4-1-1 formation. Now, of those players in that lineup, which of those do you see as the danger man, mate?
Well, if you watch the game against Forest on the weekend, Dwight McNeil scored an absolute belter. So he's another one who seems, just from memory playing against Burnley, he seems to have done decently against us in the past, and he does have a fantastic left foot. And when someone can hit a ball like he can, you do worry. And they do have a bit of quality on the wing. Jack Harrison, again, he was also a target of ours reportedly when he was at Leeds. So there is some talent in that squad, but I mean, if we're honest, and if all due respect to Everton, I don't think it's an 11 that we really should be backing down from, or should be too worried about. We should be just trying to play our game and trying to make sure that we perform at our maximum level. Because if we perform anywhere near our best, I think that'll be good enough to win the game. But for me, if you worry about anyone, Dwight McNeil, probably with his left foot, who can strike a ball or put a good set piece in, is probably the one that we probably need to watch.
Yep. And we'll go through the Newcastle lineup, and I'll let you name this one, Dimi.
Well, it's pretty standard for us these days. We don't have many any substitutes, so it's probably going to be the same 11 as we think from the last three games. So Dubravka is going to be the only change, as we just spoke about with Pope. The back four will be Tino at left back, Trips at right back, Lascelles and Shah at centre back. The midfield three will be Bruno, Jolinton, and Miley. And up front will be Isaac, Miggy, and Gordon returning to Goodison Park. So unless there's an unknown injury that we don't know about, or there's a surprise recovery, we don't want to talk about that, no. There's a surprise recovery for a Longstaff or a Botman, that's probably going to be the 11. Even if Longstaff and Botman are fit to make the squad for this game, you'd be very hard-pressed to drop any of these players. So we've had, for our standards, a 4 or 5 day break between games is quite good. So I think the players should be a bit more rested than they have been in the past. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be the same 11. And just looking at Everton's 11, I look at their fullbacks, and their fullbacks for me look very, very dodgy. And with, like you mentioned before, with Tino and Trips bombing on, and with Gordon's pace and Miggy's pace, there's a massive opportunity for us to really skin them out wide. So I'd be, if that's the Everton lineup, I'd be really circling those fullbacks and thinking, yeah, we can really go at them and do some real damage.
Yeah, let's hope so. That would be absolutely amazing if you could come away with the 3 points. One thing I want to touch on now, this was evident against Man United in the last 10, 15 minutes or so. fatigue levels kicking in, and obviously we were absolutely knackered. And a lot of people are saying Man United only came into the game late on. The only reason why they came into the game late on is because we were absolutely cream crackered. We were absolutely done in. If we were able to bring on some subs, we would have comfortably seen that game out, and they wouldn't have got anywhere close to our goal, in my opinion. And I imagine you're in the same boat on that one. The bench, if we're going to be looking at experience for us, there's going to be probably Matt Ritchie, Emil Kraft, and probably Paul Dummett in terms of outfield players with experience in there. There may be one or two more that have slipped my mind, but that's pretty much about it. But like I say, there could be a surprise late fitness test for Longstaff and or Botman. So if one of those could even make the bench, just add that little bit of experience and depth, that would make the world of difference. If not ready to play, then so be it. We'll just have to go with what is on there. But with the game at Goodison going to be high intensity, a very physical game, do you think this fatigue factor could creep in a little bit sooner? Or do you think because we've had that extra day or two of recovery from the previous stretch of games, that's actually going to play into our hands a little bit better again?
I think it'll play in our hands. I mean, we're not talking about a long break. It's only been 4 or 5 days since the Manchester United game, but I think that'll help us definitely in terms of running the game out. We're going to be tired because these boys have basically been playing every game every 3 or 4 days. So there's definitely going to be fatigue. And the one thing that I would worry about is if we haven't sort of secured the game and put it away, and it's a 1-goal margin with about 10 minutes to go, they're going to be right up for it, and they're going to probably smell blood and think they can snatch an equaliser. I remember a game a couple of years ago when they scored in the 94th, 5th minute, and when 10 men they beat us 1-0. I remember that one. That was frustrating. So it's going to be again one of those games where we've probably got 70 minutes of intensity pressure with this 11. So we hope that we can get the game sort of wrapped up by then. That would be ideal. And if we have to make changes to bring on Ritchie or Dummett or Kraft, it's just to sort of refresh that team, and we don't really need them to do much on the pitch. If we do need impact off the bench, you're right. Unless there's a surprise, we're not going to have many options to impact off the bench. Even Matt Ritchie, who's coming on, he's not really impacting the game. He's just there because he's a body, and he's the only attacking player that we've got in the squad that isn't already playing in the 11 that can play 10, 15 minutes here and there. So, yeah, that it is definitely a worry in terms of our substitutes. So you'd hope we can, if we create the amount of chances that we have been creating and play sort of this to the similar level as we did in the first 75 minutes against Manchester United, I'd feel quite confident that we can put the game away.
Yeah, I'd say so too. Now we're going to bring up the league table. Everton sit 18th, which is kind of a false position for them. We're not going to talk about the points deduction or anything like that, but if that didn't come in, they would be, sitting on 17 points. So they would be sitting 13th, which is kind of a respectable position for Everton, considering where they've been the past few seasons also. They've been relegation candidates for the past few years. But what have you made of Everton's recovery since the noise of that points deduction? Do you think they've kind of harnessed the news and just decided to let the efforts on the pitch do the talk? Obviously, they've got that 1-0 win against Forest, and we are off the back of a 1-0 win against Man United. But do you see Everton recovering from it and staying up the season?
I think they will stay up, to be honest. I mean, it'd be funny to see them go down, to be honest, because their financial situation is absolutely dire. So if they did go down, they'd really, really struggle in the lower leagues. But I think Sean Dyche, for me, is the perfect manager for a relegation rival or relegation sort of threatened team. He knows how to grind out results. And for me, in the league this year, there's a lot of poor teams. So they're probably going to be good enough to finish 17th. I think in their head, they'll probably, even with the points deduction, they'll probably think they're good enough to finish in 17th and miss relegation. The thing for me with Everton is their away form has been fantastic, but their home form, like you said before, hasn't been great. I think it's the pressure factor that they probably haven't been able to handle in the past at Goodison Park in terms of the expectation. And not just the expectation, but the way they play football and the way Sean Dyche's teams operate probably suits itself more for away games than it does at home. So they don't really take the game to teams in terms of playing football or anything like that. So they're going to look at this game as not a free hit, but it's not one that they're going to look at to say, oh, we must get 3 points here. This is a crucial must-win game. So it may work in our favour that they don't feel like it's a good old-fashioned 6-pointer as it might be against a Burnley or against a Bournemouth. So from that perspective, I think it might suit us, and yeah, it'll be a hard game, but I think there's definitely scope for us to get this W.
Yeah, definitely on that one. Now, looking at our position in the table, we currently sit 6 on 26 points. Now, a win could put us above Villa, who's sitting 4th on goal difference, effectively. Looking at some of the fixtures this weekend, Villa have Man City at home, which, although Man City's form has been a bit hit and miss, that's still not an easy task for anybody to get to. And Spurs have a London derby where they entertain West Ham at home as well. So there's every chance that we could creep up into a Champions League position, which at the start of the season, we obviously all would have snapped our hands up to be sat potentially 4th after 15 games. But to say we're potentially in a Champions League position with 14 first-team players out is genuinely batshit. My mind can't comprehend how well the team have put themselves in with the application on the pitch, and to still be in the position now, let alone pushing for a Champions League spot,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and people forget the first 4 games before the first international break, we'd lost 3 or 4 games. So if you look at that table, after that losing 3 or 4 games, we've won 7 games, drawn 2, and lost 1 in 10. So it's an unbelievable record with the lack of squad availability that we've had. So, I mean, for me in that top 6, I think we're probably sitting in a good position in terms of where we are with our injuries, and a lot of teams are probably now Tottenham are starting to have a bit of a dip, and Aston Villa will probably experience a bit of a dip leading up into Christmas as well. So I think we're in a perfect position considering where we've been with our injuries. And you're right, these next couple of games, or especially if we can get some results and the results go our way in the next fixtures, we could find ourselves in the top 4, which would be absolutely crazy considering A, where we were at the start of the season or early in the season, and B, with just the injuries we've got and the rotation or lack of rotation, the fact that we're still above a lot of these teams is fantastic.
It genuinely is. And if we do manage to move into 4th, the next Premier League fixture is away at Spurs, which will be a bit of a mouth-watering clash. Obviously, we came away 2-0 victors there last season, done the double over them. I'd imagine that game will be a little bit closer this time around, but we will see that on next week when we take on Ange's Spurs. But getting your prediction for the game now, based on our away form, their home form, how do you see this going, mate?
I think we can score goals in this one. I think Everton are probably going to feel, especially with the win against Forest, probably a little less stressed coming into this game, a little less pressure. The fact there's another Premier League match day on the weekend probably helps us. They probably don't see this game as their must win, so to speak. And I think we can probably use the fact that we've had 4 or 5 days off as a real advantage for us to get our intensity right back up. So I think we're going to win, and I think we're going to win relatively comfortably. I'm going to say 2-0, and both goals will be scored in the first half, and we'll sort of just cruise away in the second half with hopefully with some late substitutes to rest some players. But yeah, a 2-0 win and no biting of fingernails will be nice. But yeah, it has the hallmarks, unfortunately, one of those night games at Goodison Park that it's going to go 98 minutes or 99 minutes, and we're going to be hiding over the couch trying to hang on for a 1-0 win. So hopefully it's not the case. I'm predicting 2-0 and we walk out with 3 points.
Well, I'm going to go for 2-2. Scoreline from a few years back when Lejeune got 2 goals deep in injury time, I think it was. One with a superb overhead kick. So that's what I'm going for, 2-2. I just think it's basically fire against ice in terms of form, really, and they'll cancel each other out. That's my thoughts. But I am going for Gordon to score. I do think he will score, and I would love to see his reaction and the fans' reaction to him scoring. I just think that would be brilliant, and I think that's what all fans on our side anyway want to see, and I think it'd be absolutely superb. But we'll leave it there. We'll call it a day on this preview, sorry, and we will be up next with the review of said game. That should be out the Friday night, I think it is for us. I think we're going to be doing that one. Not sure who's on that one. We'll keep an eye on that one. If you don't already, hit that little notification bell so you'll be notified every time a new podcast does drop on YouTube. And if you haven't already, again, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out massively. And we are so close to hitting 1,500 subscribers. Thanks very much for joining me tonight, Dimi. I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your night. I am now off to go and track this cyclone that looks as going to blow my house down next week. And hopefully I will see everyone on the next podcast. If not, I'll be blown away into the Coral Sea somewhere.
Cheers, mate.
Have a good night. See you later, mate.